So Marcus, I'm really happy I'm not driving tonight
Yes.
on the ice.
Yeah, it's gonna be a cold
Yeah.
one today. For sure.
Very happy to be on Zoom today.
Yes. We'll give folks about another minute or so to join us. All right, good evening, counselors. The time is 7:01 and the date is January 10th, 2022, our first regular meeting of the new year. Madam Clerk, can you please be so kind and call the roll?
Counselor Perez,
Present.
present. Counselor Letterman,
Present.
present. Counselor Curran,
Present.
present. Counselor Walsh,
Present,
present. Counselor Brown, Counselor Brown,
Counselor Brown, you're muted. Madam Clerk, please continue.
Counselor Davila,
Present.
present. Counselor Hurst,
Present.
present. Counselor Edwards,
Present.
present. Counselor Allen,
Present.
present. Counselor Govan,
Present.
present. Counselor Fenton,
Present.
present. Counselor Whitfield, absent. Counselor Williams.
Present, and Madam Clerk, Counselor Whitfield has joined us.
I'm present.
Counselor Brown, present. Counselor Whitfield, you're muted. Counselor Whitfield,
Present.
present.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Will our counselors and guests please rise for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice
for all.
All right, thank you, everyone. Go ahead and get started. Are there any reports of committee from counselors this evening? Counselor Hurst.
Thank you, Mr. President, and my apologies for not giving this report at a previous meeting. But the audit subcommittee of the Springfield City Council met on December 14th of last year. I was joined by Councilor Allen, yourself, Mr. President, Edwards, Davila, Whitfield, and I believe we might be leaving a couple people out, so forgive me. The purpose and objective of this meeting and audit was to determine whether the city's processes for selection of cannabis companies for a host community agreement complied with both state and city regulations. The review covered both phase 1 and phase 2 of the city's cannabis selection process. The findings from Auditor No were pretty telling. His first finding was that there were errors in the tallying of scores of applicants during phase 2, resulting in erroneous scores for at least one applicant who potentially would have received an host community agreement if the scores were tallied properly. I believe that particular applicant finished in 7th, and if the scores were tallied correctly, they would have finished in 5th. In addition, there was a marijuana transportation company that during phase 2 was awarded a host community agreement, despite the fact that it was not in compliance with the city's marijuana zoning ordinance. In addition, the composition of the selection committee to review cannabis company proposals during both phase 1 and phase 2 did not comply with the city's marijuana zoning ordinance. And in addition, or finally, during phase 1, there were critical documents, including applicant score sheets that could not be located, which made it extremely difficult for them to conduct an adequate audit of phase 1 of the selection process. And just following up on that, there were a number of recommendations that Auditor No made to the city's law department, including implementing a quality control system to protect the integrity of the selection process. In addition to that, the law department ought to document their position relative to marijuana transportation applicants, non-compliance with the city zoning regulation, and work with the city council to amend those marijuana zoning ordinance for marijuana transportation companies, which is something that we ought to take up as at a future meeting. And then finally, the city marijuana ordinance should be amended to clearly allow for additional members to serve on the advisory committee. So with that said, Mr. President, that concludes my report.
All right, thank you, Councilor Hurst. Are there any other reports of committee this evening? Again, I will ask, are there any other reports of committee this evening? All right, seeing none, Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll to accept the report?
Accept the report, Councilor Perez.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Letterman.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Kern.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Walsh.
Yes,
Yes, Councilor Brown.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Davila.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Allen.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Govan.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Whitfield.
Yes, and thank you for pulling my seat.
Yes, Councilor Williams.
Yes, thank you, Madam Clerk. The report has been accepted. Councilors, just as an FYI, both Councilor Davila as well as Councilor Whitfield were sworn in. So we do have a complete body at this time. Congratulations to you all once again. And at this time, I would like to, thank you, turn it over to Councilor Davila. Feel free to speak at this time.
Thank you, Mr. President, for the point of privilege. First, allow me to welcome Councilor Perez and Councilor Govan to this humble body. Mr. President, I also rise to, for the bottom of my heart, give my most sincere thanks to this body for their support during this difficult time of the passing of my beloved mother, Blanca. It has been extremely difficult for us as a family. Mr. President, I knew that my mother was a saint, but I did not realize that my mother was a giant. We gave her burial back home.
Take your time, Councilor.
Thank you. In a dignified manner. I remember how proud she was when I won re-election. And I just want to say thank you to all of you. It's a deep sorrow, but I'm also at peace. And I know she's with the Lord. She's not suffering. And so I just want to take this moment to say thank you to all of you for your support, for the flowers. Mr. President, you showed up yourself. The mayor showed up. Red Williams showed up. And so I just want to say thank you. My mom was a giant. Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. And again, I'll say if you're, and if there's anything that you need during this time of bereavement, feel free to reach out to any one of us. I'm sure we would all be happy to help you. All right, thank you. Madam Clerk, can you please call the first agenda item before us?
The first item on the agenda is the MassWorks Infrastructure Grant, which is a no-match grant in the amount of $400,000.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. If there's anyone present to speak to this, please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, councilors. Chris Signoli, DPW Director, 89 Bennington Street, Springfield. The grant that we have been awarded is a $400,000 grant for the MassWorks program, and it was selected by the Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development, and we were actually notified back in October. We were told that we couldn't make any announcements until we were notified by the state. We were notified by the state at the end of December. And what this grant is for is to perform a corridor study of West Street, Avocado Street, Plainfield Street in the North End. It is also in conjunction, we were notified a few weeks back, Mass DOT is planning a design project to replace the North End Bridge. So as part of that, we are looking at corridor improvements coming off the bridge, and that's what the grant is for.
All right, thank you, Chris, for that report. Are there any questions at this time, Council? All right, seeing none at this time, I will entertain a motion to approve the grant.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve, motion made by Councilor Edwards and properly seconded by Councilor Walsh. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
On approving the grant, Councilor Perez?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Letterman.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Kern.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Brown.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Davila.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Allen.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Govan.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Whitfield.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Williams.
Yes, the grant is approved. Madam Clerk, the next item, please.
Councilors, thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
The next item is a Burnt Jag grant, which is also a no-match grant in the amount of $138,875.
Please state your name and address for the record.
President TJ Capo of the City of Springfield, 42 Garfield Street. I'm serving as interim CFO of the Police Department. This grant is for $38,000 to cover a training program put on by Babson University that's going to do 7 Fridays for the next 7 weeks for 10 lieutenants and 2 sergeants. It's going to be a variety of things related to leadership development, crisis decision making, organizational change, organizational effectiveness. So it's going to be a good training grant for our developing leaders in the police department.
Thank you, TJ. Are there any questions from the council at this time? Councilor Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sure, I'm not muted. I'm definitely supporting the grant, but TJ, why are you the intern financial guy in the police department?
Jen Leiden resigned to take a position over in Long Meadow, and
Oh, really?
the mayor asked, correct, yes. And so the mayor asked if I would help the police department for a few months. So I've been there for about 6 months or so, lending some support to them.
So are they looking for a permanent person for the police department?
At some point they will be. I'm not sure exactly when the timing yet, but they will be looking for a permanent replacement, probably relatively soon.
Okay, well, thank you for that information.
Thank you, Councilor Walsh. Councilor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, TJ, thanks for bringing that to our attention. Also, we've approved JAG grants over time. It's something that comes up annually. Is this the annual thing, or is this a special deal with this police training, et cetera?
So it's the annual training that we get or the annual grant, excuse me, that we're just earmarking for this training purpose that we typically get end of December, beginning of January.
What did you say, that last thing?
We typically get this grant the end of December, beginning of January. So
Gotcha. Great. So it's the annual grant. You're telling us what you're going to use it for.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Council.
Mr. President.
Are there any other questions at this time?
I
Seeing
make a
none,
motion to accept the grant as presented.
motion made by Councilor Whitfield. Is there proper
Second,
second by Councilor Allen? Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
On accepting the grant, Councilor Perez?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Kern?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Wall?
yes,
Yes, Councilor Brown?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Davila?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Hurst?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Edwards?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Allen?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Govan?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Fenton?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Whitfield?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Williams?
Yes, the grant is approved. Madam Clerk, the next item, please.
The next item is item number 3, the 2022 City Council Rules and Orders.
All right, councilors, at this time, I am going to hand over the chair to Councilor Letterman, as I just want to present a single rule that I alluded to on the swearing-in day, and it will be brief for sure. But Councilor Letterman, I will give you the chair at this time.
Sorry, folks, I had a very minor technical difficulty. Are we ready for the rules and orders?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Sorry, everything froze for a moment. President Williams.
All right, thank you, councilors. As I alluded to on our swearing-in day, I am going to, or proposing, I should say, to make the Springfield Women's Committee the 10th standing subcommittee of the Springfield City Council. As I've also mentioned, I've asked Councilor Walsh to chair this subcommittee, and if you would just allow me just to read just a little excerpt on the role of the committee. It states that the standing committee was established in recognition that the underrepresentation of women at any level of decision-making results in a democratic deficit. The Springfield Women's Committee will provide members with a platform to educate the public on legislation that impacts women, participate in forums that promote women participation in governance, and celebrate the accomplishments of residents. This committee will also partner with local commissions and boards that deal with women issues to further connect residents with resources and programs that offer assistance in a myriad of areas. So at this time, I'd like to just make a motion to have the Springfield's Women Committee be the 10th standing committee of the Springfield City Council.
Thank you, President Williams. There's been a motion to amend the rules. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councilor Walsh. And discussion on the motion, Councilor Walsh.
Yes, well, thank you very much, Mr. Vice President, You know, this was a standing committee. The Springfield Women's Commission was one of those commissions that was eliminated by the control board. It had been a standing committee for 15 or 20 years. And people really wanted to be involved and participate. So the Fire Commission was also, well, as a matter of fact, the control board, they eliminated all boards and commissions. And there were a lot of people who had volunteered to serve the city on many of those commissions and are really disappointed when they disappeared. So I'm very happy to see this come back. I have talked with my colleague, Councilor Fenton, about developing an application for women to join the committee because he did such a great job on other subcommittees. So we'll be looking forward to presenting that to the committee. So thank
Thank
you.
you, Counselor Walsh. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, can you call the roll on adopting the amendment?
On adopting the amendment, Counselor Perez.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Letterman.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Kern.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Walsh.
Yes,
Yes, Counselor Brown.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Davila.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Allen.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Govan.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Whitfield.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Williams.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Congratulations, the motion is adopted. Is there further discussion or amendments on adoption of the 2022 rules and orders? Counselor Walsh?
oh, I didn't realize my hand was up. But so I'll make this suggestion. I'm hoping that we can go back to a previous practice. And I don't know if this has to be decided by a vote or it's just something we can do. But I'd like to see our committee reports be recorded by the city council staff, which they used to do in the past. And then there was a standard committee policy form for reporting out committee reports. So I'm hoping we can go back to that past practice, make everything more streamlined.
Understood, Counselor Walsh. Are you making that in the form of an amendment, or perhaps we can have a committee meeting to discuss putting in
Yeah, I
place the
don't know if I
practice?
need to do it as an amendment or if it just can be something that can be adopted as a
I see
past.
President Williams' hand is up. President Williams, would you like to comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councilor Walsh, I'm happy to either have that meeting in the form of subcommittee. I've introduced the idea already to our aides and they're receptive to it. So we can just figure out the logistics of how that would work in the coming weeks.
Right. And did they have any luck finding the form?
I have not seen a form yet.
Okay. All right. That's for another meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Counselor Walsh. If there's no further amendments or discussion on adoption of the rules, we'll entertain a motion to adopt the 2022 rules and orders.
Motion so moved.
Moved by Counselor Edwards. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Counselor
Whitfield.
Whitfield. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll on adopting the 2022 rules and orders?
On adopting the rules and orders, Counselor Perez.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Letterman.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Kern.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Brown.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Davila.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Allen.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Govan.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Whitfield.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Williams.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you very much. 2022 rules and orders are adopted, and back to you, Mr. President.
All right. Thank you, Councilor Letterman. Madam Clerk, can you please call the next item?
The next item is item number 4, an order requesting the enforcement of Chapter 73.
Councilor Allen, did you have a?
Well, I just, I kind of missed that vote came up quick. I thought you were going to have something else, and I wasn't quick enough on raising my hand. I just was wondering if we could, I don't want to change a rule, but I was wondering if we could have an interpretation of the 10 o'clock rule and how we're going to use that this year. And I don't know, you know, whether it's 10 o'clock, we all vote to keep going, or whether one person can invoke the 10 o'clock rule, etc. I wish I'd brought it up for the rules discussion, but I don't necessarily want to change the rule. We implemented it a couple different times. Councilor Whitfield did it once, I did it once. And I was wondering if we could get straight on how we're going to do that this year.
Yes, Councilor Allen, I've heard, appreciate you raising that. I've heard some discussion around this rule of whether it makes sense to actually at the 10 o'clock mark have an official vote of the city council to determine if we are going on or not, or if it should remain as is, which of course, if someone dissents, then the meeting continues. So, I think that conversation might be better reserved in a general government subcommittee. And if it needs to be a possible rule change, it can certainly come back. But as it is currently, I've asked folks at around that 10 o'clock time, if someone dissents, then the meeting continues, but if not, then we stop.
Then if someone brings up this rule, they can stop the meeting, or I understand it probably should go to general government for a little more discussion of it, but I just didn't understand exactly what you said.
Councilor Fenton actually was the originator of the rule, so I'm going to pass it to him at this time.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Yeah, it's a good point, Councilor Allen. Certainly, I think we all understand the spirit of it, but how it gets implemented is sort of up to interpretation. I hadn't considered some of the questions that have arisen in 2021 when we first passed it in January that year. So I'll call a committee meeting and we'll chat about it and figure out what the most fair thing is so that it's consistent.
That's fine. I think it just needs discussion on that. That's great.
All right. Thank you, Councilor Allen and Fenton. Councilor Hurst, I'll pass it to you for this item.
Thank you, Mr. President. And thank you to the co-sponsors of this order. I believe it was Councilor Fenton, Councilor Whitfield, as well as Councilor Davila. At the most basic level, Mr. President, the purpose of this order is to force Mayor Sarno to enforce Chapter 73 of the Residency Ordinance with fidelity. More specifically, Mr. President, this order speaks to ensuring compliance with respect to sections 7315 and section 7316 of the Residency Ordinance in light of the recent Superior Court ruling by Judge Hodge. Section 7315 requires the city of Springfield to have a residency compliance commission, as you're well aware of, Mr. President, comprising of 7 commissioners, 5 to be appointed by the mayor, including a union representative, 1 who shall be the affirmative action officer of the city, and another who shall be appointed by you, Mr. President, or a designee, either yourself or a designee of yours. In addition, Section 7315 also gives the Residency Compliance Commission the power to investigate, conduct hearings, administer oaths, take testimony of any person under oath, requires the production of any documentation or evidence relating to any other matter in question under the investigation by the commission. For those who haven't read the decision, Judge Hodge made it clear that prior to this Friday, the city of Springfield never had such a commission, but indeed, Mr. President, had a duty to create one in accordance with the law. Judge Hodge stated, and here I'll quote him, that no trial witness was aware of the Residency Compliance Commission ever existing, nor is there a shred of documentary evidence of its operation in any manner set forth in this section. The judge goes on to say, there is no dispute that section 7315 is valid. I've included an opinion from our solicitor that I asked for a few months back, Mr. President, this evening for everyone's review. But more importantly, so that you could see that the solicitor tried his best to legally justify the city's lack of implementation of this section of the residency law. I knew then that his opinion wasn't as objective as I thought it could have been in terms of the interpretation of the law. And I was personally, Mr. President, pleased to see that Judge Hodge agreed. So the first thing that this order does is it orders Mayor Sarno to appoint a residency compliance commission and to inform them of their roles and responsibilities under section 7315 so that we can be in compliance. This particular commission is also important because it allows for due process, Mr. President. So if there's any individual that is allegedly in violation of this ordinance, they have a right to be heard and to present their case. There was no way that we could have implemented this ordinance without having that mechanism and actually have it be held up in a court of law, a firing if someone was in violation. So that was critical to appointing this commission. Now, the mayor has appointed the members of the commission. We can go back and forth and argue about the fact that, folks may not agree with his appointments. I certainly think it's difficult for them to be objective, considering that they all work for the mayor, but that's not our purview. In addition, Mr. President, you as well have appointed the individual that you were supposed to appoint to the Compliance Commission. And I think it's great that we have Councilor Fenton, I believe, who is ultimately going to serve. With that said, Mr. President, we also have to deal with section 7316 of our residency ordinance, which requires a residency compliance unit within the personnel department to conduct investigations of city employees and officers where there is a reason to believe that an employee or officer would be in violation of the residency ordinance. So we have a compliance commission, which has already been taken care of. And then we also need a residency compliance unit. In addition, and finally, lastly, Mr. President, section 7316 also requires the Springfield Police Department to serve as investigators for both the compliance unit and compliance commission. So with respect to this section of the residency ordinance, which is why I think we need to continue with this order, Judge Hodge made some rather alarming findings, and I think they're relevant to be heard today in the event that folks did not read the ruling. The judge explained, and I quote, "I do not credit Mahoney's testimony that in 2013 or at any relevant time, there has been a residency compliance unit as required by section 7316 of the residency ordinance." He goes on to say that Mahoney described the residency compliance unit as comprised of himself, the assistant personnel director, and the human resources generalist. He also testified that the residency compliance unit meets once a month and tracks employees who have a one-year grace period to move into the city of Springfield. Mahoney was unable to give any date when the residency compliance unit began to meet and could only say it's been a while. When asked how many employees, residency and grace periods he was following between 2009 and 2016 to check for compliance, he replied, "I couldn't tell you." He testified that he was unaware of any employees between 1995 and 2016 being terminated due to non-compliance with the residency ordinance, Mr. President. He stated that during his tenure, beginning in 2009 and to the time of the trial in 2020, the residency compliance unit had conducted only 3 investigations, and that he did not use the Springfield Police Department to investigate as mandated by section 7316. Although the ordinance tasked the residency compliance unit with ensuring that employees file annual residency certificates and submit verifying documentation of residency, there is no documentation of any such certificates, the judge says, being filed during the relevant period. He concludes by saying if the residency compliance unit were operational during that period, there would be some documentary proof of the residency certificates, investigations by the Springfield Police Department, and residency verifying documentation. The city has produced no such evidence, Judge Haas ruled. I find that the city did not, at any time before this action was filed, create and operate a residency compliance unit. So, Mr. President, two takeaways from that. One, the city has not created an operational residency compliance unit, according to Judge Haas. Something that we need to do and is called for us to have under the ordinance. In addition, the city has not used the police department to conduct investigations as mandated by the ordinance. Two things that the judge had said needs to happen. And I can verify that because on August 2nd, 2021, Mr. President, and I'm wrapping up in a minute, I reached out to Ryan Walsh via email and asked him who was the point person in the police department that serves as an investigator for the Residency Compliance Unit and the Residency Compliance Commission, and when was the last time they investigated a residency complaint? His response, Mr. President, and I quote, "This is a human resource question." So that told me that he had no idea what role the police department ought to play in this ordinance, and nobody had told him what role that they should be playing, which means that it was inevitable that they would not play any role in investigating any cases that came before either the Compliance Commission or the Compliance Unit. So the last thing that this order does is order Mayor Sarno to establish the Residency Compliance Unit, which clearly has not been done, and have it function and undertake the work as described in Section 7316, including using the police department to conduct investigations. I would recommend, Mr. President, that the mayor ought to appoint somebody in the personnel department other than Bill Mahoney. Clearly, he has floundered in his role. However, that is not up to us as a body. I just want the mayor to enforce the law, which clearly, according to Judge Hodge, has not been the case. The importance of us passing this order now, Mr. President, is that on February 1st, this residency compliance unit, hopefully it'll be operational by then, is charged with doing a slew of things to ensure that the residents who are employed by the city actually live here. And so I think it's incumbent upon us as a council to demand that the mayor implement the residency ordinance that he has neglected to do so for as long as I can remember. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, Councilor Hurst. Councilor Whitfield, followed by Councilor Walsh.
Hi, councilors. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Councilor Hurst, for that thorough information you just provided. I have a couple questions, and I don't know if Attorney Pakula would be the one to answer, but Attorney Pakula, first I want to say congratulations on your retirement. As I stated in my email, I can't wait till I'm sending the letter over like that. So I wanted to say thank you, and thank you for the work that you've done over the years. I really enjoyed working with you as your finance analyst when I worked for the finance department. That was fun times. It was more fun then. So I just want to say congratulations on the work that you've done. But the questions that I have is for the Compliance Commission. I'm trying to determine exactly what their role is and if there would be a conflict of interest if, let's say, Melanie is on the commission and someone in the finance department is, there's an investigation on someone from the finance department. Would there be a conflict of interest there and for any other department as well? That's my first question.
So I guess there could be, but again, typically matters wouldn't bubble up to the commission until they've gone through the unit. And I know Judge Hodge made some findings, but I'd like to point out that number one, the case was about the fire department, and the fact of the matter is that there's been a long going dispute over whether the applicability of that ordinance to the fire department. But all of us, especially I'm sure Councilor Hurst has filled out those certificates of residency that we all do and that are kept on file. And a copy of one was introduced at the trial, but the subject at the trial was their applicability in the fire department, because I think all of us know it's been functioning for many years with regard to the rest of the city, because we've all filled out those forms. And Mr. Mahoney has copies in his office of all the agendas, monthly agendas, where they review those certificates. But as to the fire department, there are zero. But the other aspect is the the compliance unit, their investigations typically don't need any sort of investigator. They ask the employees to provide evidence, documentation, etc. To date, I can't think of any situation where there was any sort of evidence or need to say we'd better get any sort of investigator involved. Particularly not to say we need to get the police to investigate. When it's residency is an issue, the subject is typically someone allegedly living someone outside the city where the police have no jurisdiction. And I'm not sure we want the police going around tracking our employees as to where they're sleeping at night. The issue is really one of documentation, proof of what's called domicile. From a legal perspective, the issue of residency is not where a person lays down their head at night, but is what their legal domicile is. And the evidence of that are things like voting, taxes, car registrations, payment of mortgages, payments of rents, payments of utilities, things of that nature. And those are the items that an employee has to come forward with for the unit to review. And we haven't had any situation, and I think the counselor is correct. The testimony, there was 3 investigations during all of this time that had come up where someone was accused of not living in the city and that came to the residency unit. 2 of them were most recent. Now we have 5. There had been a complaint to look into 2 others. There was no evidence was presented with the most recent complaint other than I think these people don't live in the city, and no other evidence has been brought forward to the unit. But overall, I think all of us know that unit is functioning on a monthly basis. We've all filed those certificates. We all know, but the dispute was the fire department, and all the other unions filed, including the police department. So this has been an ongoing dispute. I know that there's discussions and negotiations going over about it now of how do we resolve this. For the most part, that case, we won that case. The city advocated for the validity and the enforcement of that evidence, of that ordinance. Unfortunately, Judge Hodge found the portion that applies to the termination of employees for not submitting certificates or for not living in the city invalid and unenforceable. So that section at a later date, not for this here meeting, needs to be redone. And I'm looking forward to working with you, or maybe my replacement working with you, to make improvements to that ordinance.
All right, thank you. So let me just piggyback a little bit or go back a little bit, because I know that there were some folks that have gotten like a year waiver. They get a year to move into the city, and then nothing was done after the year. Is that something that the Residency Compliance Commission would handle? And
That's not a waiver. The ordinance itself states that they have a year to move in. That's part of the ordinance. It's not a waiver that anyone gives. And,
okay. And what happens if they don't move in after the year?
That's the purpose of the unit. On a monthly basis, they review all the certificates of employees who are at their 1 year point to look into where they live. And so what's happened is whenever they've been able to find, hey, we have a question, they then go to the person, and either the question is resolved by, no, you're wrong, or it's led to people resigning or people moving in. And that's why there haven't been any sort of terminations, because we've been able to voluntarily assure compliance. And there's been no need for any hearings because there's been no dispute. People either have this residency in the city or they don't.
And my final question is there like a look back period since this has been passed and it's supposed to happen since 2016? Are we going back, or are these folks now grandfathered? How's that work? Because I actually know some people who were past the 1 year time when I worked there, and they didn't move into the city. They didn't resign. It's nothing that I was gonna tell, because I didn't really care. But I don't know if that unit was working effectively or they weren't, but I personally know some instances where that did not happen. Their waiver was up, their 1 year was up, and nothing happened, and they just kept working. So,
well, if you know of anyone, I would ask that you bring that to the attention of the unit so that they can assure compliance. I know the mayor takes residency very seriously. We've worked very hard to get it into all of the union contracts. The holdout, if you will, has been the fire department. We've now got some clarification of what's enforceable and what isn't. And I'd like to make sure that it's more simple and more transparent as we move forward. And I'm sure everyone else here would too.
Thank you. And the unit, you don't mean the commission, you mean the unit, but there's no unit yet, correct?
No, there is. That unit meets monthly. This is what I'm saying. And it has been.
Who's on the unit? Who's on the unit?
The Councilor Hurst gave you the names. The judge read them. So, but it is Mr. Mahoney and the others in his department. And as I said, they have agendas. I'm sure if you wanted to go to Mr. Mahoney's office, you could look at the agendas going back for years. And they're on a monthly basis.
All right, well, I'll work with Councilor Hurst to get those names again, because unfortunately I'm babysitting and I was distracted from hearing all the names, but I will definitely get that info.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Councilor Walsh, followed by Councilor Fenton.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. And I will also start off by wishing you well in your new role. Ed, do you have a retirement date so we can plan a proclamation for you? I'm sure you want to take it to your new office.
Thank you. I'm hoping I don't have to go to any new offices. I haven't set a date yet. I'm still trying to work that out with my replacement. I want to make sure that we're both ready and that there's a smooth transition.
Okay. All right. So, residency. Residency has always been a very difficult subject because people never thought it was fairly enforced. People always thought there was a lot of favoritism in and Ed, over the years, how many rumors there are about people who don't live in the city, but they still work for the city. And it was always very difficult. I think Councilor Fenton and I believe Councilor Allen, you helped really clarify this issue, and the work with the unions is great. But the fairness of residency has always been the issue. And I'm glad to see there's a document. But I have to say, and I don't I agree with most of it, but I agree with Attorney Pakula. I don't see any reason to involve the police in this. I think the police very often have difficult adversarial relationships with the general population, and I don't see this as anything that's going to help with that tension. I would rather have it being looked at by somebody besides the police. So I don't know if we're voting on this tonight or if we can have a discussion, because I support the enforcement. I support the Chapter 73, but I do not support using the police for enforcement.
All right, thank you, Councilor Walsh. Councilor Fenton.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just really briefly, first of all, on the order, I'm thrilled that the Residency Compliance Commission has been appointed, and honored that you've selected me to be the council's designee to that commission. This has been an issue that is passionate, is an issue that I've followed passionately for my entire political career. And as one of the authors of the current version of the ordinance, which has been revised many times since 2010, when we came in, I'm really proud that we're at the point where a commission has been appointed and we can start to focus on some of the issues that Councilor Walsh and Councilors Hurst and Whitfield were talking about, but most particularly about the fairness point. Because I've long felt about this subject that if we're going to have a rule, then it has to be enforced. And the truth of the matter is that we've come a long way on enforcement, and there is quite a bit of enforcement that goes on. We fill out the residency certificates annually. That was a requirement that didn't exist under the prior law until I put it in the newer version. We have an effective waiver process. Members of the council get notification of waivers. There's a fair and transparent process for reposting position for 7 days in hopes that someone from Springfield will apply. And sometimes they do, and the waivers aren't granted. So I'm looking forward to serving on the commission. In terms of the compliance unit, I think, query what the word unit means and what we put together. I know that Bill has been working very hard and effectively at tracking the data and implementing judiciously enforcement over the years of this ordinance. That is a fact. And when this issue came up with Judge Hodges' decision, I went back through my old files, and there is a plethora of old Excel charts and tracking documents that were used by the so-called unit, if you will, to monitor who submitted their compliance certificates, who hasn't, what types of complaints have been alleged. The most recent hearing that I'm aware of was related to a different deputy chief in the fire department. So it's also true what Solicitor Pakula said about the fire department being the last to come along in terms of the residency battle. And when we first implemented the certificate program, the fire department was the only department that refused to comply and submit the certificates. Even the police did back then. Didn't have some of the results we would have liked to see on the answers to those certificates, but at least the police submitted them and did so honestly under pains and penalties of perjury. So I will say that through the collective bargaining process and through the hard work of this council, and Councilor Ramos, former President Ramos, was helpful with the fire department for a few years when we were having that debate. Every single one of the city's collective bargaining units are now subject to residency. And when we started this fight 12 years ago, I think the answer was 2. So we've come an awful long way, and I'm looking forward to the first meeting of the commission. I've already reached out to Drew Permonti, who's the fire department, representative on the commission, and look forward to working with the other members to report back to the council at least a couple of times this year on what our progress is and what we can expect for the future. So I think it's a great thing, and look forward to finally putting this issue to bed in a positive light for the residents, because residency is important and it's a rule, so it should be followed.
Councilor Fenton, Councilor Davila.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a quick questions for the solicitor, if I may. Solicitor, again, congratulations on your upcoming retirement. You quite deserve it. But solicitor, in terms of, you mentioned the fire department quite a few times during your statements. And I thought that there was, as it comes to residency, isn't there a state law that says that firefighters could live X amount of miles of the city?
Yes, so, you know, the point is both police and fire have some limitations, but we have negotiated those limitations. We've negotiated around those limitations to require residency in both police and fire for like the first 10 years of people on the job, or 7 years, whatever it is. I forget the exact numbers, but teachers are totally exempt. So the school department and the unions there's a little different than the city, as Councilor Fenton mentioned. On the city side, we've got it in all of the contracts now. I hope that answers your question.
It does, but I'm just trying to get my full head on this issue. I do believe, and correct me if I'm not mistaken, for the fire department, I think they have to live in the city for 10 years when first hired, and then they can seek residence somewhere else, correct?
I believe that is the terms and conditions that we had negotiated.
And what about for the police department?
It's something similar.
Okay. And now my other question is, regardless of how we feel about this one or the other, the truth is that it's an ordinance. And it kind of jumped down on me that if I understood correctly, Councilor Hurst's presentation, that the police department has not been conducting this, regardless how they feel. It is city ordinance. I'm just wondering, can you give me a little bit of
as I said to Councilor Whitfield, all of these cases to date have been disposed of at the unit level. There's been no need for any hearings, and all of them have involved investigations, if you will, that there was no reason to take a police officer away from investigating crime and to investigating where someone's living. So, I mean, we've been able to resolve that without anything other than documentations presented, and all documents have been presented. And where we found some discrepancy by ordering the people to either move in or quit, they've done just that. There's been no need to go forward with a hearing to terminate somebody. The one situation that has come up came up in the fire department. We had a deputy chief who was recalcitrant. I think you may remember it. And in that situation, the deputy was brought up on charges. A hearing was held, and the former fire commissioner ruled there was no violation. That fire commissioner's contract was not renewed. That being said, in this decision, Judge Hodge found specifically that he agreed with the former fire commissioner that deputy chief was in compliance with the residency ordinance. And he talked about the exemption in the ordinance being anyone who had been here since 1995, before 1995, they were automatically found to have been in compliance. There was no need to do anything else. And so in the one case where we held a hearing to try to, where the, again, was prosecuted by labor relations, and it was up to the fire commissioner to act as the hearing officer. And the fire commissioner agreed with the presentation of the employee's lawyer, and so didn't Judge Hodge.
I think, solicitor, I do not expect you to, what's the word I'm looking for, to tell me everything like that, or what in the administration's thinking necessarily, but what the explanation you just gave me makes a little sense to me. However, I am a little concerned with whether we like it or not. The ordinance says the police department is to conduct investigations. I'm a little concerned, Mr. President, that never happened. Maybe this, I don't know. I just know that I was told.
What did you want them to investigate? None of the case. We never had a situation where we even needed any investigator. The documents were presented. Why would you want to take the police off the street and have them looking into something that there's no dispute on?
But the unit itself looked into it, right?
Yeah. Dear employee, please provide us documentation of where you live. And that was done. And where there was a question, they said, wait a minute, you don't comply. Either move in or get out. And that happened. There was no need to call a police officer and investigate.
Okay, I see what you, I see what you're saying. I don't fully, although I understand what you're presenting, I am a little still concerned. But Councilor Walsh says it is something that needs to be looked at and changed later, then so be it. But you know, I am a true believer that the ordinance is to be followed as it is.
Hi, Helen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Those are my questions.
Thank you, Councilor Davila, Councilor Hurst, followed by Councilor Govan.
Thank you, Mr. President. And let me be clear. The only thing that this order is asking the mayor to do is to enforce the law. And really enforce the law that this body has voted on as the law that should be followed as it relates to residency. If folks want to change the law because they don't like something about it, by all means. All this order does is to say we've got a law in the books similar to, let's say, the police commission, and we want this law to be implemented. Now, in terms of, you know, the police doing the investigations, you know, if we want to get into the weeds, I disagree with the solicitor. I believe the reason why you haven't had any cases rise to the Residency Compliance Commission level is because Bill Mahoney has done a poor job. That's my perspective. But that's not what I'm asking for here. And the solicitor doesn't have to agree with it, or any of the counselors don't have to agree with that position. I know of individuals who have given their cases, or I know of instances in which there have been allegations of individuals who have been in violation of the residency ordinance. I've looked at all of the evidence, and I know individuals who have hired or have had folks that have investigated these claims because they didn't have the police department on their side. They didn't have somebody who was going to go to that extra level to say, you know what, they're not really living here. And so they did it for themselves because the city wouldn't implement the ordinance. Now, the other issue that we have is that Bill Mahoney is sort of the bar. He's the end all be all. So if Bill Mahoney doesn't feel as though these cases rise to the level of sending them to the Residency Compliance Commission, that's it. And based off of Judge Hodges' ruling, I just don't see how one individual ought to be charged with that level of responsibility, considering everything that the judge said, whether it applies to the fire department or any other department in the city of Springfield. Those remarks were damning in terms of implementation and enforcement. And so it would seem to me, because otherwise, what good is the Residency Compliance Commission? If nothing gets there, why appoint it? Why appoint it at all? And even more to that point, I lost my train of thought. I was on a roll. So anyhow, I just think I don't want folks to get caught up in the weeds. This order is merely that. I'm sorry, that's what I was going to make. That's the point I was going to make. The mayor, based off of this verdict, as a result of this order, has appointed 5 or 6 members to the Residency Compliance Commission. He knew that he was in violation, on top of the fact that the judge pointed out that he was in violation. And so he recognized that and he did it. So you can't pick and choose what part of the ruling that you want to enforce and what part you don't want to enforce. This order speaks to the mayor enforcing the law, however which way you see. On paper, It says what the law is, and folks can interpret it how they see fit. But my hope is that we can pass this order compelling the mayor to enforce the law. He didn't even scratch the surface of it before this order.
Councilor Hurst, Councilor Govan.
Thank you. I wasn't sure if Counselor Allen, did you have your hand up? His hand is raised.
Yeah,
It's fine. It's fine. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'm so sorry. Thank you so much. And as a new counselor, I wasn't going to say anything tonight, but this is very near and dear to my heart. As you all probably know, I was part of the class action lawsuit that was brought forth at the city level in 2016. And I'm hearing Mr. Pecula that, you know, the ordinance has been in compliance and it's always been done and it's been investigated by someone. Then why did we have to bring a lawsuit? You know what I mean? So something happened where things weren't right. And Councilor Whitfield tonight said that, you know, someone is in the city and they're not living here and they're not in compliance, but, you know, she doesn't want to say anything. So those are the kind of things that keep happening in the city. And my focus as a counselor now, and always as a community member, has been to encourage people to live in the city of Springfield. We have a wonderful city here. We want them to live here. We want them to work here and spend their money here, live, work, and play here. And that was the focus, and that was the reason that I joined the lawsuit, because it's important to me that that happens, you know, and whatever it is that we have to do to make sure that that happens is what we need to do. The reason I joined the lawsuit was back in, I want to say 2012. I was on the police academy, Citizens Police Academy, where the citizens partook of the citizens police training, and a police officer walked in front of the class of city residents and said, basically, I wouldn't let my wife and children drive through the city. And when he said that, I was like in shock. Why would you say something like that? We're residents of the city. How are you gonna, you know, talk down to us like that? But he had the audacity and the nerve to say that because he didn't live here, his family didn't live here. All he was doing was policing us, you know, and that was the big problem that I had and the reason I joined the lawsuit. So whatever it is that we have to do to make sure that this happens and it continues to happen, we're in compliance with residency, we have to do it. That's my opinion. And I want to thank you for your time. Congratulations, Mr. Pecula, on your retirement. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Govan. Councilor Allen.
Thanks, Mr. President. Yeah, just checking. I'm not muted. Thanks. A good, robust discussion on residency. It always prompts that kind of discussion. And I just want to thank Ed for your history, your perspective and history on it. Thanks to Mike for his commentary before. All I can say is that this was one of the harder things that Mike and I worked on this together. It was one of the hardest things we worked on. It took an awful lot of work and a lot of discussions, a lot of convincing. And we got it to a point. I always felt that we had the backing of the council. Whoever was on the council, it seemed like we've always been strong on residency. I don't know if all 13 of us are still, but I've always felt that way. And it's important because this is a place where the council really had a big impact in making sure that this was straightened out and was enforced, was put in place and enforced. And that the new ordinance that was put in 2012 has a lot of good stuff in it. And one of the last ones was Residency Compliance Commission. Now we've got that in place and people going to, process being put together. And I think it's I implore everybody to still support it. I wish Mike the best of luck. Thanks, Marcus. I think it's a great appointment putting Mike on that. And it's hard work. This residency stuff is hard work because everybody's always got a story of something and some exception or whatever. It's really important that we stay strong on it, that we enforce the ordinance, and that the Residency Compliance Commission does their job. It's an important thing for the city, from a lot of different perspectives. So thanks for the support from everybody. And good luck to the commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Allen. Counselor Whitfield.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to say that I'm glad that Counselor Govan spoke up. I think as one of the plaintiffs, her voice and what she said was very important. And some of the reasons that I support enforcing this is for the same reasons. We have folks that don't live here, that's patrolling our neighborhoods, that don't care about our children, that's working for the city, that don't care about our city. They're gonna take their paycheck and they're gonna go back to whatever communities they live in and spend their resources in the communities that they live in, talk negatively about our city, go to the media, talk negatively about our city. And so it's important that when we have folks interacting with our families and our children, that they live right here, because when you are from the community that you're policing or that you work in, you're more connected to the individuals. As far as me knowing some folks that work here or they were past their 1-year waiver, that's when I worked for the city. I knew of some individuals like that. They were bragging about it like, well, they ain't enforcing it, I'm not saying anything. And they don't no longer work for the city now, but they did back then. And they worked for the city for some time after that, not living in the city past the 1-year time. So I just wanted to clarify that. I don't know of any situations right now presently, but that was from when I did work for the city, because it was some bragging going on back then. So I'm very happy that Councilor Fenton stayed steadfast on this issue. I'm very happy that the judge found that there were some things that weren't being implemented with this ordinance. And I'm glad Councilor Fenton is also on the committee, because I think he has a very strong voice and he's been working on this for such a long time that I don't think there would be a better appointment. And I thank Councilor Hurst for really enforcing this thing. And I do support it moving forward as written. And then if folks want to bring changes later to the ordinance, I'm definitely willing to have those discussions. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, Counselor Whitfield. Are there any other questions that I see? Counselor Fenton, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I was just gonna say thank you, and I'm thrilled it's appointed. I'll be reporting back.
All right, thank you, Counselor Fenton. Are there any other questions or comments at this time from the council? All right, seeing none at this time, I will entertain a motion then to approve the order.
I make a motion to approve the order.
Motion made by Counselor Whitfield, proper second.
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Allen. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll on approving the order?
The order, Councilor.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Letterman.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Curran.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor.
Yes,
Yes, Councilor Brown.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Davila.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Allen.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Govan.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Whitfield.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Williams.
Yes, the order is approved. I don't believe we to suspend Rule 19 for this item. Madam Clerk, can you please call the next item before us?
The next item is a resolution in favor of the Tenant Protection Act.
Right, Councilor Whitfield, I believe that's you.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, I want to table this item. There's some changes I wanted to make to it. There's some information that I want to add to it, and I haven't had a chance to talk to Senator Gomez in broader detail. So I just wanted to table this item at the time.
Okay. All right, thank you, Councilor Whitfield.
That's in the form of a motion, yes.
Thank you. Councilor Whitfield has made the motion to table this item, seconded by Councilor Fenton. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll to table?
On tabling item number Perez.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Letterman.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Kern.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Walsh.
yes,
Yes, Councilor Brown.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor DeLuca.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Allen.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Govan.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Whitfield.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Williams.
Yes, the item has been tabled. Madam Clerk, is there any further business before the council this evening?
There is not.
All right, councilors. Well, I hope you all have a blessed evening and please stay warm. It's going to be a frigid.
Have a good night.
Good night,
Good night,
everybody.
everybody.
Good meeting, everybody. Stay safe.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.